Hello, everyone, and welcome to this sacred time where we share our spiritual practice of steps to knowledge and where we learn from each other and where we give our gift of stillness to the world. So let us be in a moment of stillness before we begin. Nasi Navari Guru. So tonight, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've been on a mini and maxi retreat for the last couple of weeks, and it's been a big adventure. My kids used to say, we're going on a big adventure and make memories. So, the step, well, first I want to talk about how it all started. I started doing this one step. It's step 55 in steps continuation training. And it's there are forces in the world I must comprehend. So, I mean, I just started out like I always do, just trying to understand, what's going on and give myself to the step. But I spent a couple of days on it, nothing was happening. And I was like, it says there is a word must in the beginning, which I'll read to you in a bit. And it was the word must that set this process all in motion. Anyway, so I was trying to think of a way to penetrate the step. And I decided after gnashing my thoughts around for a while that I would go to the New Message website and I would use the search field, which, if none of you know where that is, it's on newmessage.org. It's on the upper right hand side, and it's right to the right of the words worldwide community. Anyway, so I put in that field, I put the words forces of dissonance, and I put them in quotes. And if you put things in quotes, it'll search for the exact thing that you put in there. But if I put it without quotes, it would come up with forces and would come up with dissonance. But I was interested in the words forces of dissonance because of what was in the step. Anyway, I was on my way and I started by studying the visitor's perception of humanity. And something in that revelation led me to want to know more about a particular area that I saw. So I went back to the New Message and I searched for whatever that word was. And anyway, this method took me on my adventure and it ended up taking on more or less a kind of a life of its own. Anyway, what I came away with was not only a new way to approach my practice, increase my awareness, and give me a heightened sense of the importance of practice and an enormous appreciation of gratitude for the unseen ones and for Marshall. I mean, the scope, the clarity, the depth, the mechanism for its delivery, the time, the energy, the effort, and the sacrifice on Marshall's part moved me deeply. And strangely, at one point, I sat there imagining the chairs that Marshall has sat in over the decades, chairs in so many places all over the world, even, and the hours and hours he sat and listened and repeated these magnificent words that we read and that move us today. Anyway, there was so much that filled me. I can only share a small part of the many, maybe 10 or 12 revelations that I worked with. But I came away with saying that I realize that we're swimming in a mental reality that we are only minimally aware of. We have so little, if any, comprehension of the forces that live there and drive us on a daily basis. Most of the world doesn't even know that there is a mental environment. It's a huge part of our life that is misunderstood, misappropriated, and underutilized. And as I moved through my study, I remember somewhere in the work, our Marshall spoke of it, saying that the steps to knowledge is only half the preparation, and the mental environment is the other half. And when I finished this retreat, I realized that I have only barely pierced the second half of that, of the practice. And I saw that we are at a huge disadvantage in our daily lives and in our future as we face a community of intelligent life that is far more adept and knowledgeable within the mental environment than our yet primitive awareness is of it. So I'm going to take you on my little journey, but first I'm going to read the step 55 in the Steps Continuation Program. There are forces in the world I must comprehend. Must, keyword. There are forces that affect people in the world that you must comprehend. You must gain an understanding of why people all think the same, why they have the same attitudes, why they use the same words and phrases, why they have the same responses that do not come from knowledge, why they hold to the same assumptions without question, why they follow one another blindly around, why they act mindlessly and foolishly, and why they hurt themselves and other people. If these forces were not in the world would be a place of knowledge and would be totally unrecognizable from what you see today. So clearly, you must understand the forces that limit and hinder you if you are to advance. Do not claim that they are beyond your scope or beyond your comprehension, for this is not true. That was another point where I thought, okay, it's not beyond my scope. Therefore, today, think about these things. Do not assign a cause to a person or an institution. Do not say, well, the government is this and the government is that. There are greater forces. Yes, they can manifest through individuals, organizations, groups, authority figures, and so forth. But really, what is this power? Why is it so effective? And why do people succumb to it so easily? How is it being used by those who wish to control others? And how does it control those people who are doing the controlling? Interesting point. Do not try to answer these questions, for it is an exploration. The important issue here is that you are asking the questions, not that you are giving yourself to the answers. In your practice, in stillness, let all questioning go. Practice upon the hour, using awareness and discernment. If you are advancing in this curriculum, you will begin to feel and sense things that you only intermittently felt before. You will sense the presence of forces. You will feel influences within people and around people. You will see that there are really counterproductive forces in the world. They can act through you. They can act independently of people. This is why you feel good in certain places and not so good in others. This is why one place does not feel like every other place, why one person does not feel like every other person. For knowledge to be so thwarted in the world, there must be significant forces opposing it. Today, begin to explore what this could mean and where this could possibly come from. So, I started my journey and I came across life force, one of the chapters. I don't have all the links, as I'm going to give you a bunch of random quotes that I've excerpted from all of my readings, the ones that I felt were significant, at least to me. So at the end, if you want, you can get in touch with me and I can not give you the exact quotes, but I can give you all of the revelations that I studied over this period of time. And one of them was life force. So life force is an energy which exists in all living things. This is a familiar idea to many who read these words. If you can enter into this greater context, then everything that we are saying will be illuminating and very useful and valuable. But if you cannot enter into this greater perception and perspective, then you will continue to interpret things according to your own interests, ideas, and understanding. So, excuse me, it's very important to get this greater context. So it goes on to say, in the greater community, life force has a greater value. It is an actual power that is cultivated. There are people cultivating, beings cultivating, using, developing. They're being developed by certain races for certain purposes. Because there are adept individuals in all societies throughout the greater community, there are always demonstrations of greater skill, greater awareness, and greater ability. However, if these are discovered by the powers that rule these societies, then these powers and abilities are put to work, either as a defense or as a tool for controlling others. The discovery of greater powers, abilities, and awareness becomes a liability for any society once these powers have a popular application and are seen as useful in dominating or controlling others. That is why the wise remain hidden, to remain alive and to maintain those greater powers and abilities that they have discovered. These powers and abilities have real usefulness in the hands of the wise. Yet once these powers become used for political or military purposes, then their usefulness declines and they can become weapons that are used against others. This is demonstrated in many places in the greater community. Finer and more subtle abilities exist within all individuals, and greater powers exist within particular individuals within a particular race or culture or race. These can all be exploited for political or military value. Therefore, there is a great burden in carrying knowledge and wisdom, the burden of keeping them hidden, knowing who to share them with and how much to share. That was very telling. Serving all of manifest life in the universe, there are also unseen forces. These are functioning within this life force, and these are the forces for good. These unseen forces speak for what is good and necessary. They serve as a source of encouragement and reinforcement for those who are beginning to experience and recognize knowledge, the great spiritual inheritance that the creator of all life has imbued in all intelligent races. These forces are here to serve specific goals, to reach certain people and individuals, and to assist those who are beginning to experience the light of inner freedom and those who are beginning to experience a greater presence around them. So the forces for good are using life force for the good. Then there are opposition to these forces, which is significant for strict hierarchical societies are afraid of any other source of authority functioning in the individual's life. Those powers and authorities that are not aware of knowledge or who do not honor the existence of knowledge will tend to oppose it and regard it as a threat to their authority and to the stability of the nations that they govern. Here, essentially, you have competing powers. You have the power of the state and the power of large commercial forces that are focused on stability, security, and continuity, wealth, and power. So there's another force. Then there's the forces of evil. They oppose the unity of life. They oppose the evolution of life. They oppose the work of knowledge. They oppose the reclamation of knowledge. These forces are generated from both within the world and beyond the world. That was something that caught my attention. These forces are evil in the sense that they oppose the unity and evolution of life. They are disruptive. They seek to separate what must be joined, and they seek to join what must be separated. Evil exists in the realm of the mind and expresses itself in the realm of the body. Interesting. It does not exist in the realm of being or God. It represents profound confusion of mind and it must be recognized as an operative force in the world. It is a force that you can feel in certain places more than others. It is operating more in certain individuals than others. Evil is a force, and you must accept evil as a condition of physical life. Don't like it, but I guess we have to accept it. Okay, other forces of dissonance in the world. The forces of dissonance in the world, which, by the way, are not only greater community forces, are able to move about quite effectively without human recognition in many cases. Not because they are invisible, not because they are spiritual forces, they're physical forces, but because they can influence the mind that perceives them. So somewhere in the new message, it talks about life forms. And I'm thinking maybe that's what they're referring to here, but I'm not sure. Anyway, there are the forces we create in our minds. This was interesting. When the mind is not in harmony with itself, it experiences its own imbalances and the imbalances in its environment as well. Here it will produce imbalance and discord and respond to what it produces. This creates a vicious cycle in which the mind produces experiences and then responds to its own creations. Rarely is it aware of what it is producing. The mental environment is stimulating you, and you are stimulating it every moment of every day, whether you are awake or asleep. As you learn to become more aware of the mental environment, you will see this in effect, and it will open your eyes to the great interaction that occurs between human beings and between human beings and their environment. It is occurring at all times. Here, indeed, you are entering a larger arena of life. And that's what really spoke to me. That's what I started to see, this larger arena of life. Anyway, the discordance generates a force in the world, a force of dissonance. This discordance generates a force in the world, a force of dissonance. For instance, if you are troubled, concerned, or very fearful about something, or if you are very angry or resentful, you will create a dissonance in your environment. Once this dissonance leaves your own mind, it becomes a force in the environment. But you didn't know that. Now, if only one person is generating this, it will be a very weak force and easily dissipated. However, if many people are generating these kinds of experiences, they will create a force that is more lasting and much more potent and effective. This force then can influence other minds in such a way that it seems to overtake them. So tonight, I want to focus on the forces of dissonance that are visiting our world. And it refers to them as those groups that are allied with each other and are attempting to exploit the world to discover its secrets and its wealth, and who are testing human beings both directly and indirectly to learn of their nature and their predispositions for possible future alliances. So now I have some random quotes that I found revealing, I guess you could say. There are forces of dissonance from beyond the world that are visiting the world. They are not coming here on your behalf. They are adept in certain ways at manipulating the mental environment. Manipulating the mental environment to affect and influence the behavior and the recognition of those whom they might encounter, particularly if they wish to study the thinking, behavior, or biology of their subjects. They will use these skills to whatever extent they feel is possible. Abductions are right in there. There are increasing numbers of individuals who have been affected by these forces directly, and they are deeply disturbed and distressed by the encounters that they have had, if they are aware of them at all. This was important here. It is not just their technology that is superior. It is their understanding of the mental environment and their ability to manipulate it for their own ends. So they have superior understanding of the mental environment and superior capability to manipulate it. Here, you are at a great disadvantage, for you have not cultivated your mental abilities and are not aware of how your mind can be controlled by other minds that are more concentrated, less diffused, and less conflicted than your own. You are facing competition from the universe around you. Resource explorers, economic collectives are infiltrating the world in small groups, seeking to turn the tide of humanity's actions to their advantage through persuasion and deception, seeking to gain strength, seeking to turn individuals toward them and away from human leadership. The world is undergoing intervention from economic collectives whose ethics you could not agree with and whose methods are entirely self serving. The forces of dissonance are not adept, though they are clever and cunning in the ways of espionage and observation. Espionage. I don't remember reading that before, but espionage is something to think about. They seem far more advanced than you in this regard and can easily observe you and are learning ways to manipulate you and very effectively. But they are not adept in that they cannot control the mental environment. They can just use it. And they can shield their own minds effectively. Therefore, those who are wise and more advanced than they are influencing the mental environment and can not only comprehend their motives, so this is I'm assuming the unseen ones, but in time, and maybe the allies, but in time can learn to affect them as well. The forces of dissonance are indeed being controlled by others who are far more powerful, but who are not present in the world. Something else to think about. So who among us, I'm thinking, who among us has superior knowledge of espionage? In the presence of a greater intelligence, human beings will make erroneous conclusions. That is because you do not understand the mental environment. Indeed, from a practical standpoint, should an alien power want to take greater control of human affairs, they certainly would not need weapons to do it. While I was in this research and immersing myself in this, something really bit strange and interesting happened. I mean, I was getting all kinds of information and I was feeling full. I mean, I didn't know what to do with it. And anyway, I was just, I don't even know what you could say I was. But anyway, one night I went to bed and all of these thoughts were like churning around in my mind. And I was like, what is going on? What do I need to know? I mean, I was asking myself all these questions. And anyway, I woke up in the morning and I was just laying there, like aware that there was thoughts still swirling around in my mind and um, trying to get what they were trying to say, what they were all about. And a thought started to form in my mind. And it didn't come quickly. I mean, it just started to form out of the ethers, I guess. I don't know. It was very strange. I've never had this happen before. Anyway, I finally got what was going on, and there was a thought, and it was a question. And the question is, can pacification masquerade as unity and cooperation? I was surprised, to say the least. Anyway, where this came from is a mystery, but it does give me a way to filter and observe the world to see what I can see. So you can be with it. Can pacification masquerade as unity and cooperation? So then I was, how can we prepare for these forces and when we don't even know how to negotiate our minds? And I read that, by the way, I read The Battleground. That's a really tough revelation to read. Anyway, in the battleground, I think is where this came from. And it said, in the battle lines are being drawn. Our nations are vying for positions of control. Many who lead these nations understand the great change that is coming to the world. They want to have as strong a position as possible to control access to resources as much as possible, to assure their security as much as possible. So they will vie for control and compete with others for control, but none of them understand the greater threat in the world, the threat of intervention from beyond the world that will seek to use human conflict, ignorance, and human ambition to its own ends. So here's our little government, like vying with one another, but they really don't see the big picture or see the big threat. So what do we need to do to start, and where do we start? Well, and personally, and I mean, that's all I can do is personally. I don't have any power in the government or anything. But time and time again, the new message points to steps to knowledge as the source of our redemption, personally and as a human race. And I feel like after my immersion in the revelations, that it is imperative that I raise my focus to the next level. I became very aware of the great need for us to ramp up our involvement and our understanding. I felt this urgency, this importance. So we need to become, but it's like, where do you start? And then, I can tell you a little bit more later, but we need to become aware of what we are thinking, where these thoughts are coming from, who are our influences, who are we influencing? Identify at the world's Identify the world's influences. How do we do that? Can we be with them? How do we control what we are thinking? How can we redirect our minds, stop our minds from racing? Identify what we're really feeling and why we're feeling it. The mental environment is with us every moment of every day, and we are either being influenced by it or influencing it. There's no neutral here, which you can't just kind of not take a stand and not influence anybody or be influenced by anyone. And there, as I was doing this and I looked at the next few steps, I mean, they were all about being attentive to what we tell ourselves, being attentive to what to others, being attentive to the world. It's like being present, like to what's happening, what's going on in our minds. So they also talk about the impact of television, music, and radio is very, very great on the human mind. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, no wonder there's so much violence in the world. All you have to do is turn on the TV or read the news, and violence is being poured into the mental environment just on an hour by hour. And even children's games are filled with very violent contact. And just this morning, I was on YouTube and I clicked on this one thing that I thought was really going to be cute. I mean, they have all these moms and dads post pictures of their babies and their little cute little actions. Anyway, this one YouTube video showed a little baby trying to get his brother's attention, and his brother was watching. His brother was probably maybe 7 years old or so. He was intently watching something on television, and the little baby was crawling up and trying to hug him and get his attention. And the little boy just sat up really quickly and said, "Shoot, shoot, shoot." And it was some kind of cartoon. And he was engaged in this. And whatever he was doing, he wanted to shoot. He wanted whoever was involved to be shot. And I thought, wow, that is really telling that what's going on in his mind? What is that? How is that affecting his mind? Anyway, so another quote, your role is to shift the balance in a positive direction. If you do not exert this influence, you will either be an unwitting accomplice or an actual proponent of the forces of dissonance. So I'm going to read that again. If you do not exert this influence, trying to shift the balance into a positive direction, you will either be an unwitting accomplice or an actual proponent of the forces of dissonance. In either case, you personally cannot take a neutral position in life. The only true beneficial position is to abide with knowledge. For knowledge is not touched by evil, but seeks to contribute to what is good. Without knowledge, life will seem like a warfare to you, but life is not warfare. This is a very important understanding. So, steps to knowledge in the new message are tools to help us do this. And here are some more quotes. In order to learn the greater community way of knowledge, one must face that one's intelligence is very limited and needs to be expanded. They're not smarty pants in the universe. It is true you will be competing with intelligence with those who are now visiting your world. In the greater community, you would not be considered strong or advanced. Human beings are capable of receiving great things if the incentive, desire, and freedom are present. But it is a danger when human beings will not respond to what is occurring in their lives and will not seriously consider the implications. I came away with this feeling that unless we become aware of the mental environment and how it affects us, we are such an enormous disadvantage. Anyway, I also came away with enormous gratitude for the new message, for the gifts that it holds. There is no way that we would know its contents without Marshall giving his life to bring it to us. Here it is necessary to learn what generates power in the world. In the world, power is the result of a concentration of mind. In other worlds, a mind that is more concentrated will be more powerful and will be able to influence other minds that are less concentrated and thus less powerful. Concentration is the focus here. Big clue. This is very important. The more a mind is concentrated, the more it is focused. The more it is focused, the more it is directed. The more it is directed, the more powerful will be its impact. Because you live within a mental environment, this is a world of mental influence. Here, if you do not exert an influence on your mind will simply be influenced by others. You will simply be pulled along in the direction in which most minds are thinking. We are facing the great waves of change and an intervention from much greater intelligent beings. And we're facing them with fragile, inattentive, and undeveloped minds. It's imperative that we address this disadvantage in order to successfully navigate these times that we're facing. And we have before us the tools to do this, thanks to Marshall and the unseen ones. But remember, the tools are only as good as those who use them as they are intended. So I'm going to leave you with that. It was quite a journey I took, and I'm still on it. There are more leads that are coming to mind. So, but now let us all join in meditation, and you can either read your step or think about the things that I've spoken of. And I will join you on the other side of 30 minutes. Thank you for listening. Nasi Nuvari Karam. And while we're in this place of quiet and peace and stillness, I wanted to read a few quotes from the book, The New Messenger, and I extracted some quotes that emphasize the word must. So God has sent a messenger into the world, sent from the angelic assembly. He is the first messenger to come since the days of Muhammad, and another will not be sent for a very long time. His role is so important. He is bringing something into the world that has never been brought here before, continuing the great series of revelations brought to humanity at critical turning points in its history and evolution. He comes at a time of great and growing need as humanity is facing a world of immense environmental change and all of the political and economic upheaval that will result. He is coming at a time when humanity stands at the threshold of a universe full of intelligent life. He comes at a time when humanity must prepare. His calling to the world is that the world must receive this. People of all nations, cultures, and religious affiliations, he is calling to you. For those who can hear, for those who can receive, for those who realize that a new revelation must come. But now a revelation must be given. The messenger has spent 40 years receiving it in isolation. He must now proclaim to the world in his remaining years. His calling, then, is not just to one group or one nation or one region. It is to the whole world. And that is why he is broadcasting to the whole world and providing the revelation to the whole world and providing for the first time in all of human history the voice of revelation. You must hear the messenger's call to you. God has sent him here to be the recipient and the primary representative of God's new revelation for the world. The messenger is a humble man. He has no position in the world. He has been through a preparation unlike anything you can imagine for a greater calling and a greater mission here on earth. But he must speak to the people of earth and reach as many as he can in the remaining years, in his remaining years. Certainly, those who follow the messenger now and in the future may be prone to misinterpret and misapply God's new revelation for humanity. And sadly, this will occur because people do not yet have the clarity and integrity and understanding yet to be able to carry such a message forth beyond the time of the messenger. That is why certain people are chosen and selected to do this at the very center of the messenger's life. They too must prepare and meet the requirements. They too must follow an inexplicable journey, not of their own making. They too must face great uncertainty and opposition in the world. They too must hold the vision and the fire of knowledge despite the chaos they see around them and the tragic nature of human pursuit for happiness and fulfillment. This is his calling to you. This is your challenge. Can you face the light of revelation? Can you be receptive to God's new revelation for the world? Can you take it to heart and apply it in your life? For it will provide so much for you right now in everything you are doing and in everything you need. So now let us send our love, our gratitude, our devotion, and our intention to be strong students of knowledge to Marshall. And now bring to mind anyone in your life that you feel needs some help, some prayers, some assistance from you. Send them love, send them forgiveness, send them strength and clarity, whatever you feel they need. Nasi Novari Karam. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll be with you again next week.